Truth 666, kindly, please present your argument, and let's go over that.
Hey there. Oh, this is so strange to call into an atheist show, but hey, Richard said call in. Present your
we are happy to have you. We are happy to have you.
Yeah. So I've got my computer closed. I'm not looking at the chat, so leave that up because I want to concentrate on the call, so I'm not even focused. Anyway, and I want to say to Vern, too, I'm also sorry about Crew Cat. I know how hard it is to lose an animal, so I'm sorry to have to say that. Yeah. But anyway, back to Phil. Okay, now, I listen to your show every Sunday. I'm sure some people can tell in the chat thing there. So, and, a lot of times I can tell they're repeat callers, and sometimes I go, but I remember Phil's first call when he called in, and he said he was an atheist that went to I think it was a Unitarian church, a liberal type of church.
Church of Christ. Church of Christ.
Okay, Church of Christ. So I'm not familiar with the Church of Christ church. Is that that's more of a liberal type of church, right? It's
according to Phil, and I have to take his word on that. But Phil is a former believer, stepped away from the church, has been an atheist for about 20 years, I think he said. I don't know, maybe the 20 is inaccurate, but in any case, he's been an atheist for a long time and decided the sense of community, is really what pulled him in. And because the church has been so open and welcoming, he feels at home there. So, what's your gripe about that? If you have one?
Well, I don't really have a gripe. I have a skepticism as to why an atheist would feel the need to go to a church for the sense of community, because I get the sense of community. I get where there's in the atheist community, there's not that same type of community as in the theist community. I get that. I lived in a state where I used to live in Utah. From Utah and moved to Maryland. Red state to blue state. So I grew up in a state like that. It was hard to be secular in Utah. No matter, you tried as hard as you can, but you were still so immersed in that the Mormon culture. Because anyone knows Utah, I've lived in Maryland for 23 years, so it's maybe been a little less red, but back when I lived there, I grew up there. I was born there in 1960. So, oh no, I gave away my age. So I lived there.
So Truth,
40.
Truth, are you a theist? I'm sorry. Are you a theist or an atheist?
I'm an atheist. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Oh, I'm an atheist. I'm sorry. I should have said that. So, but being secular in Utah so I knew I didn't believe in the Mormon God. Didn't believe in Mormon, but I believed in God. Okay. Don't know why. But I moved to Maryland and still held that I believed in God. And then for some reason, I stumbled onto Atheist Experience 20 years ago. So I've been watching Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen atheist shows for 23 years now.
Excellent. So
I just, my mind just has gone from, and I got to the point where, no, I do not, how to say this is, I lack a belief in any God. I want to be very clear, because atheist, there's so many definitions of an atheist, and we can and you can hear theists make, so it's just, I came to the point where I lack a belief in any God. But so since that journey, the reason I don't believe in a God is because of all the stuff that's tied to believing in a God. So
Truth 666, I want to address these things because first of all, you're doing great. Okay. I mean, you were nervous to call in, and I think you're doing wonderful. So just keep that in mind. But I also want to tell you though, just because, so according to your experience, right, you could never go back. right? Atheism is who you are now, and it's
Right.
in many facets, many forms, and there are just some things you can't do.
Right.
But we have been saying
Right.
all along, and I think after 23 years of your viewership, which by the way I'm incredibly grateful for, not all atheists are the same, and just because you can't do
Right.
something doesn't mean that another atheist doesn't feel comfortable doing that thing or even shouldn't. Even though we have taken our beliefs and we've put them behind us, they're still very much a part of who we are. I would not be here without Lutheranism, and the great great Phoebe, who is a frequent nonprofit and has been on some other shows, continues to wear her Star of David. I think is the correct terminology.
I remember that. Yeah.
And she's no longer a practicing Hebrew or practicing Jew. I think I can say that.
Right.
But in any case, she still wears that symbology, right? Because it's a part of who she is. It's a part of where she comes from. And I don't have an issue with that. I still keep a little Lutheran like kind of pendant in a shoebox in my closet. I could throw it out, but I don't know. I have my Bible that I got when I was confirmed at age, what was I, 13, I think. But I still hold on to it, and it's one that I reference quite frequently. But I don't know that I would take the step, to call Phil, to be skeptical about Phil. And maybe he does have some questions that he's still trying to get answers to. I don't know. I kind of wanted to just posit that on you. Don't want to take over your whole your whole intro there. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
No. Let's get back to truth.
Sorry, sir. No, I was going to say no. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I understand your perspective and how you hold on to things from your past because they mean something to you. You just can't throw everything away from your religious past. You can't do that. You would be like a psychopath or sociopath if you just didn't have any feelings or any empathy for anything. That would be crazy. Of course you wouldn't want to do that. I understand. I've got things, that I still hold on to because the culture, some of my deep things inside of me, just because of they have meaning to me. So I haven't, that's understandable. Yes. But the reason I'm skeptical about the church, atheists going to church, is because doctrine is doctrine is doctrine. Churches all have that doctrine. The doctrine, I feel, preaches hate. Hate and making people others. Doctrine is still the doctrine. Has the church changed their doctrinal beliefs? Have they stopped believing in these bad things? Have they stopped just because they tamped it way, way down and they try to brush over it with a layer of frosting? You get under the frosting, it's still a rotten cake.
Well, truth,
why
I think
skeptical. That's why I think that. I just think that yes, an atheist if an atheist can get past the doctrine and go to church, then that's on them. That's why I'm skeptical, though. But an atheist that can just put a layer of frosting on hate and pretend that's not there when they walk into the church, hey, my hat's off to them.
Truth, it sounds like, and I have a lot of empathy. It sounds like there's been, some trauma in your experience with the church and the doctrine, and that's like completely understandable. Like a good parallel to this too is like maybe some of the listeners have heard me or seen me on this before, and I like breeze past. Yeah, I used to be Catholic, and now I don't do this stuff. But like, I think part of my holding on to this thing is like, say, I didn't have it as bad as others had it. Probably didn't have it as bad as you, Truth. So I'm like trying to breeze past that, and that's like a whole Catholic guilt thing, like so I'm like simultaneously breezing past it and keeping on it. We really recommend that you try recovering from religion, which I'm sure you've heard us talk about and all that fun stuff, if you want to walk past it. But like, this is a logical, understandable feeling for you to have here. At the same time, with religion, there's 3 B's: the belief, belonging, and behavior. People are always somewhere on different elements of that spectrum, including the churches, right? Of like what we actually believe and what we don't, what we're subscribing to and what we don't. And I can't imagine that in Phil's church, they're like, no, we don't care for Jesus. You know, like it's like we're not talking about any of the teachings or anything like that. But it sounds like Phil is not necessarily involved in the same sort of doctrinal behavior as yours, or at least is recognizing it, maybe trying to influence it from the inside. Trojan horsing it, Phil. That's fantastic. Or there's some other reason for him doing it. It sounds like he's looking for community. He's looking for his friends and hanging out with them, and also doing it in a place where he feels emotionally safe to maybe share his counterpoints on these things. And these folks are receptive to it. So I'd rather take that audience. I'd rather have the conversation than shut it off and say, you know, you can't be part of the club. Not that that's what you're doing, but just that's how I'd look at it.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tom, that is a good segue to Truth. I just wanted to take Tom's comments and use that as a segue to kind of get into what my thoughts are on that. And that is, you know, you see the church doctrine as being monolithic, and granted you should, because for several thousand years it has been across tens of thousands of miles and across time. But we do see changes. We do see, you know, Phil even saying that his church is actually welcoming to the LGBTQ community. And that is not something that we had 50 years ago, you know, not something we had 1,500 years ago. And it's something that we're having now. And these engagements, these conversations, and in a way, what Tom and I are doing here and having a conversation with you may be the very same thing that Phil is doing when he attends some of these services, you know, just being there. Telling about who he is, what's important to him, that opens the door to possibilities to some of this doctrine maybe getting watered down or even ultimately disappearing, which is what we can hope for if it's a hateful doctrine. And I do agree that it's a hateful doctrine, and put in the wrong hands, it is proven to be devastating to humanity. But you know, it seems like there may be some opportunity for it to be changed. And I get where you're coming from. You know, a wonderful contributor, friend of the show, a nonprofit, Jason Friedman, feels that all LGBTQ people should never touch religion, never go into a church, right? And I get it. I understand where he's coming from, right? And you're welcome and entitled to that hardline approach. On the flip side, you know, we don't gain any ground, I think, by remaining inactive. And so that's where I'm going to leave off my comments. What are your thoughts on that, Truth?
Well, I agree with the person that said what was the name that said a gay person should never go into the I tell you that.
Jason Friedman, wonderful guy.
Yeah, I don't understand how they can get past that and walk into a church either. I'm with him. My oldest son is gay. I mean, I don't even, I look at him and I think what is the doctrine that this church that Phil walks into holds, and what that doctrine says about my son. I could never do what Phil did because I know what the doctrine says. So I couldn't do it. I can't even eat a Chick-fil-A. Okay. So, some things I can't get past. So that is one of the things of the doctrine. And I know Phil's church probably holds, says about people like my son.
What do you want?
I know that.
Yeah.
I guess like Truth, like the way I like to think about things, like how to make these decisions. Like,
it's okay if Phil does. Yeah, I don't care if Phil does. That's him.
For sure.
I'm just skeptical, you know, that an atheist that is an atheist, and there's, you know, how an atheist can allow a walk in a church that holds that doctrine. So, you know, an atheist is many people have different. We're not all going to ever agree on it. Atheist, you know, it's just an atheist. When you get to the point of being atheist, you've examined you've gone through, you've seen things, done things, you get to a point, I guess there's a line that you know you will not cross, a red line. You know,
Yeah.
you come to me, you won't cross that line. And so I guess, you know, Phil's red line is different.
Well, you know, truth,
My red
look,
line.
your son has a great mother, really, honestly. You know, I can hear the passion in your voice, and for you to be nervous and still call and advocate for your son and people like him, you know, I think is commendable. What I don't want to do, though, is kind of adopt this idea that atheists need to be the same, because you know what that turns into? A religion, right? And that's the very thing that you know, we want to avoid. And I'm not calling you a theist by any means. I'm just saying, you know, we hear you, we hear your critique. I'm sure Phil hears the critique as well. I mean, we already know he does, but I just want to say that you know, we've heard you, we're with you, and you know, we hope that you and your son continue to have a great life and can kind of not have to deal with some of the things that you may have dealt with. So I want to thank you very much for calling, and we are going to move on and get to some other callers.